The next portion, the part 3 edition of creating our figure walk cycle in our computer animation class. And next thing I want to do to my character is I'm going to add a hat onto his head here, and I'm going to add a new layer for that. And on this layer I'm going to go ahead and take my pen tool. And when I'm drawing here on this layer, I need to make sure that snapping is off. So if I go to snapping to objects, I want to make sure snapping to objects is off. That way, when I click here, if I want to make this hat brim go close to his head, it's not going to automatically make the pen snap onto the actual head drawing layer. So once you bring your pen tool back to the original spot where it started, you click on that dot, and that will let you know that you've closed that line. That way we can fill this object. So right now I don't think that actually did close. So I'm going to zoom in, and when I do zoom in and investigate here, I can see that it did not close. So what you need to do is take your subselection arrow, click on that end point right there, and try and click and drag it so that it matches up, and that point is actually closed. So then I'll go ahead and fill in this hat shape, kind of like a boxy sort of a house almost, with a brim on the back. I'm going to make this point go a little more to the middle, maybe make the brim just a bit skinnier. And I could maybe pull this at a bit of a curve. Yeah, there we go. So just a little bit of a curve. I might bring this down just a tad more. It does look a little bit big for his head. So maybe that's a little bit better. Alright, so if I zoom back out, now my character has a cool backwards hat. But next thing that we really want to focus on is creating the actual walk cycle for this character. So we want to make his legs cycle through the positions in order to make the illusion that he is actually walking. And in order to do this, what we want to start by doing is we're going to need 28 total frames in this animation. Now remember, we're inside of this movie clip. Out on the main stage, we should just see one layer with one keyframe at the beginning, and this keyframe containing your movie clip with your character. Inside of that movie clip, we have some layers. We've got our front leg, back leg. All these layers we want to, as I said just before, we want to have in here for 28 frames. So if I go out to 28 here, I click on the top layer, hold shift and click on the bottom one, and then I'm going to press F5. Okay, so that means that these frames will be present in this animation for 28 frames. Now we're going to mainly work in this part 3 video on the front leg. So what we want to do is actually go through and add keyframes to every other frame. So I'm using my arrow key on my keyboard. My greater than or less than symbols will take me back and forwards. Or also known as the period and comma keys. So if I press the period key and then F6, oops, I need to go every other. And do every other, give every other frame a keyframe, all the way up through 15. And so here I am at the 15th, and so I'll stop right there. Okay. Now what we're going to do is go back and actually change the front leg graphic out on each of these every other frames. So for this first one, we can leave this foot number 1 position in place. We'll go to the second one, and we'll actually, what we're going to do is just nudge this foot slightly back and rotate it just a little bit maybe. Okay, so if we use our comma key and go back, we just see that foot sort of slide back a little bit. Okay, and then on the third keyframe here, so we have this one, and it slides back a little bit. Now here, what we want to bring in is actually the foot 5 graphic, which we should have over here. So what I want to do is actually delete, oops, to undo that, don't delete those out of your library, but if you do, you can still undo those. So I just pressed Window Z and that brought it back into my library, which is a nice thing that it does that. But like I said, this foot is now going to raise off the ground. So what we need to do is pull out that leg. So I deleted that third keyframe. We're going to pull in this foot number 5 that we actually have that usually will be used for kind of the upswing of the foot. And what we want this foot to do is start to kind of kick upwards. So we want this to be just slightly off the ground from the previous frame. So if we go back through and go to the beginning, we scroll forwards, we see the foot slide back just a little bit, and then the foot starts to come up on that third frame. And now this fourth keyframe here again, we're going to delete the foot we have there, and we need to bring in foot number 2, the second foot graphic that we made. So we'll bring this back to our stage, and now this is where our foot position should be at. Now I'll go back and check and make sure that this seems natural. The foot slides back, starts to go up, and then kind of bends into this position. Now looking at it again, I think this needs to move forwards just slightly. And if I check this, then that looks pretty good. Okay, going ahead now, we need to again take this next keyframe, delete this one, and now we should have foot number 3 is the one we are going to take and put into place. So now this foot is back a little bit from our other 2. You can see a little bit more of the back leg now. The back leg will probably animate in a 4th part video so that these are broken up into smaller segments. So we've got 2, then 3, and then 4. Okay, and it seems like my level is a little bit lower. What I need to make sure is that I have all these feet on the same level. So something that I'm going to bring up is I'm going to bring up my guides. So if I go to Window, or yeah, I need to go to Window, and then I need to go to I'm not seeing the rulers now, but that may be something I can come back to later. I can always add in my own kind of guide down below here with something like the line tool. But like I was saying, I need to make sure that these feet all stay above this level. So I just added that line there, and now, well, it'll go away, but I'll have to look back into making sure that those do stay on the same level. But let's go ahead here still. Let's go back to this pattern now. So we're moving right along. We need to take this foot out, and I believe now we are going back to bringing second foot graphic back in. So I'm taking this foot number 2, and this is actually going to be more tilted upwards because this is actually the foot swinging back and to the front. So I'm going to take that foot and make sure that it's elevated from the other foot. So that is a good way we can use as kind of a guide. I need to make sure that no foot ever drops really below where this level is. So that's kind of the ground level we need to remember. So that is okay. That's still good. That seems to drop a little low. So I need to move that up so it's a little bit closer to where the foot actually was. This one definitely needs to move up as well. I think that's better. And now the foot is up, and then it shouldn't come quite back down yet. What we should be doing here is maybe I need to go back and check the order that these have gone in. So we have foot 1, and then foot 1 still. And then we skip to foot 5, foot 2, 3, foot 4. Okay, that is where we missed. So this goes from foot 3, and we skipped foot 4 here. So, mistake on my part. So what we should do here is this is supposed to actually be on this frame. So what I will do is I will copy this one, and I will go right here, and I will paste this frame in place. Need to skip back before this though. Here is where I actually need to add foot 4 back in. Okay, so this needs to be an elevated foot, kind of swinging back a bit before the foot comes back into the front. Okay, so if I scroll through this again, foot slides back 1, now we're at foot 5, then 2, then 3, then 4, then back to 2, and now this should be 5 again. So on this frame, I'm going to delete that foot. I'm going to take foot 5 and bring foot 5 into place. The foot is actually swung forward now before it will drop into place. Back at position 1. Okay, but before we get there, what we'll do is add in a series of keyframes here, 5 to be exact. So we'll have 1, go over 1, 2, 3, and then there's 4 and 5. So we want 5 keyframes here, and each one we're going to slightly move the foot a little bit further. Okay, so actually what I'm going to do is delete these, and one at a time now we're going to take this keyframe and we're going to rotate this foot a little bit more. So I'll press Q on my keyboard to bring up the free transform, and I'll go ahead and rotate this foot down slightly and move it a little closer to the ground. I'll press F6 again, and I'll rotate it slightly more and move it down a little bit more. F6 again, down a little bit more, getting closer, and one last time. And now the foot should be really close to coming down. And then, so that makes 5 in a row. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I'm going to skip a keyframe again and add another one. Here is where the foot will actually touch back down at 1. So I'm going to delete this keyframe here, go back to foot 1, and add that in. Okay, so that I want to be right about the position where it started. And now if we scroll back through here, we should see our keyframe animation here start to come together. And so there is a pretty complete walk cycle. We're going to add a couple frames at the end, but this is one piece. So I guess you know, we could make this guy skateboarding. He could just be using that one foot, kind of pedaling along. But what we want to add here is just a couple more keyframes. What we are going to do on these last keyframes is just add every other frame up through 28, and we are just going to leave these at position 1. And that is the complete walk cycle for the front leg of your animation. And so in part 4, we will look at animating the back leg, and then adding a tween and having this character kind of move across the stage, or drop them into your looping background animation. I hope you have lots of luck with this, and have lots of success.